I love this quote from McLuhan just because I keep seeing how every time we invent something new, then we interact with it. And then it changes how we think about everything else. Is this thing feedback?
Yeah.
So from those of us who have a long view of the industry, and there's quite a few of us here, well, there's a long view. And I've been really excited these last couple of years because there's this kind of cyclical move that comes around. In the early days of floppy disk, you could take a class or learn from somebody who knew and make a game. The founder of Broderbund, Doug Carlston, who was a lawyer, created a little game with his brother. They made copies on their floppy disks. His brother dropped them in a bag and drove around in a station wagon and sold them to hobby computer stores. And 10 years later, they had 500 employees and millions of dollars when they went public. And what happens is there's this move that comes around, and every time it comes around, the tools for creating come back to us. And then we have this huge explosion of creativity. So it happened with the early floppy disks, and then HyperCard and Bill Atkinson, who was such a hero for a lot of people because he made it available, authoring available for everybody. And then Macromedia was really easy for a lot of people to create products. And every time this happens, it creates this real opportunity in that HyperCard, when Bill Atkinson's neighbor was Amanda Goodenough, and she created a little story called Kyoko's Dream, which was a sort of some clickable story about her cat. And she made copies, and she sold 250,000 of them at $60 a pop. I looked at that when they shipped the product and shipped HyperCard, and I thought I could do better than that. And a lot of other people did too. Same thing with Director. People were making their own stuff in their garage. There was a lot of garage bands when Director first came out, and a lot of people were able to get into it. And then we slid into the internet, and anybody who could do HTML could create products. And now we're into the touch market. And it's interesting how it just keeps coming around, and every time it gets accessible and everybody can all of a sudden do it, we have this huge explosion. Dust or Magic, we were kind of, we followed even the curves of all the stuff that gets shown here. There was some time when it kind of drops down, where the market matures, and it's only the big players, and everybody sort of stands back for a while and goes, oh. And in fact, the kid market was kind of sliding around for a lot of us that were looking until Disney bought Club Penguin, and all of a sudden there was money, and then all of a sudden a huge explosion again. So in between the independent developer, there's the big guys who are always wrestling. And you got a lot, you want to compete with Mario's universe, you got to have a big team, you got to have a license, you got to have all these other pieces. And the small developers are basically squeezed out, and we just become players. So one of the opportunities that happen every time we have this cyclical piece, and why I'm excited is because we're in one of those explosions right now, before the market matures. So it's an emerging market, which is all the hand-touched environments. It's an open platform. There's no platform licensing fees, relatively low cost for entry, and accessible programming environment. So you think that Darren watched a video and created his own product, a video of a 12-year-old taught him how to program it, or that Duck Duck Moose, that Carolyn with her husband and a graphic designer can get together and start a company. Hey, let's start a band, here we go. And you can be a viable company if you have some talent. So it's making it for this interesting revolution. So opportunities for the beginners makes a creative explosion. And look at it, it's just been like huge. And I had a bunch of metrics and I decided to toss them out because they were too boring. But you just watch the graphs of where kids are playing games, and it's just like, wham! So it's incredible. So here's an interesting one, just creative opportunities for developers to go where it sets us up to go places where commercial companies might not normally go. These kids are Cherokee, and they're learning the Cherokee language fed back to them through handheld devices. And I know several other anthropologists who are totally excited. I know a woman who has all of the Weechel language that was given to her about 15 years ago. And when I was explaining this to her, and she was in tears, and she pulls out disc after disc after disc of the language that was given to them. Then now she's going to be able to take it back to the kids and retrain them. So I think that's the kind of opportunity that happens when it's not in the hands of Nintendo. And then, of course, there's the explosion for the kids. And where I'm going is that about play. That's what I really want to talk about, is play a little bit. And I love this. You can't really fail at play. Because it's just, you know, I think that sometimes as developers, we get lost in the world of, you know, paying the bills and all of the other things in life. Often why we got into it, as Ann talked a lot about yesterday, is just our passion for play and enjoyment and watching the joy in kids' faces. So here's a quote from one of the kids who informed me, and she said, "This is a kid who lived on her DS. I mean, Sailor Moon and so many other products. I just watched her, you know, on and on and on and on. And then she gave me these long storylines that I could never follow, but I always thought it was interesting just to watch her talk because she was so animated and excited. But she said, well, why do I want to buy a DS game anymore? Because even though I used to love the DS, for $45 I can buy a ton of great games for $1 each. And duh, you know. And she does. And Nicole's part of my life these days, and so I see her all the time. And she always comes over and goes, look at this, you know, look at this game, look at this one, you know. And she bought them herself. They're free downloads. So that creative explosion is like going out into all the kids. We're there now, and then there's this word of mouth, and they're all passing all the fun stuff around. So I think that's really pretty exciting. Warren asked me to talk a little bit, 5 nuggets from my book. I decided just to talk about play, but this is 10 years in the making, not done yet. But I want to thank those of you who have contributed, and I have actually a few more I want to pick from you. So, I think that our job as designers of children's interactive content is to be child play advocates. That play is this whole larger subject. Go faster. There we go. So, play is not just a relief from serious learning. It's the work of child. So, research shows that play is essential to a joyful life, instrumental partner learning. It's what has its own reward, and it's what kids do. It's apparently purposeless. It's voluntary. It's inherently attractive. We have a freedom from time. We forget what we're doing there. We just get so involved. In fact, I came across an interesting quote from supposedly Albert Einstein, who said, when you're sitting on a hot stove, a few seconds seems like hours, and when you're sitting with a pretty girl, a few hours seem like minutes. So it changes time for having a good time. And you forget about yourself. You get lost in the process of the creation. It's part of the flow. And you begin to improvise because you're playing with the pieces and you have a continuation desire. So if you really have a good product, the kids want to come back to it naturally because the desire to come back and do that again, if it makes them feel good, if they feel involved, they feel empowered, they're going to come back. So, tips on creating, make a connection to the kids' world. Being a former child is not enough. You need to practice play yourself. And you have to connect with what's alive in kids today. So what are they doing? What moves them? What interests them? You have to talk to real kids. Remember to listen, to ask questions, and to be curious. Look at things that you already understand as though you were seeing them for the first time. You have to put on your kid glasses. Let yourself be child-led. I was at a conference some years ago where one of the executives from Nickelodeon was talking, and he said, yeah, you know, it's a funny thing, but every time we think we know where kids are, we drive into a ditch. And because you have to keep coming back and asking, again, well, who are they today? Who are they today? Who are they today? There's a difference between things that have intrinsic value and things that have an imposed value. So sometimes well-intended products will impose so much structure and process that the games are no longer enjoyable and alive for the kids. So they interact out of coercion. And I feel that so many learning products, and since we have our critics hat on, I'm thinking of Leapfrog particularly, plays to the fears of parents. Your kids are going to be behind. Better buy this product. Better buy this product. And even though they've done some great products that are fun, it's also about scaring the parents more than it is about offering stuff that really turns on the kids. Make it kid-friendly. I like to make a distinction between making something for kids or making something with kids. That's what we're just talking about. And I found that generally the product that is more for kids is often less interesting for them. You know, it's kind of like Dr. Amy Bruckman used to talk about chocolate covered. Kids have kids can really tell when you're giving them chocolate covered broccoli. Because it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're tricking me here. This isn't really fun, is it? You know? Let's see. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. Be a child play advocate.